Today's episode of the Our Hen House podcast is being sponsored by our partner, A Well-Fed World. A Well-Fed World is a hunger relief and animal protection organization chipping away at two of the world's most immense, unnecessary, and unconscionable forms of suffering. The suffering of people hungry from lack of food, and the suffering of animals used and abused for food. Mending our unjust food system is a critical part of solving the world's most destructive and persistent problems. Fortunately, the plant-based foods that promote health and well-being are the same foods that conserve resources to better feed the world, while reducing greenhouse gas emissions and protecting the environment. A well-fed world provides the means for change by empowering individuals, social justice organizations, and political decision-makers to embrace the benefits of plant-based foods and farming. Learn more at awfw.org.
Our hen house is a squawking house. Our hen house is their hen house. Our hen house, ooh, it's a funky fresh house. Our hen house is your hen house.
Hi, everybody. This is Jasmin Singer here, and I'm very excited because, as you know, if you listen to the podcast with regularity, I'm on a book tour right now, and I am currently speaking to you from Livingston, Montana. And I just came from Spokane, and I am being joined right now by two very special guests, two of my favorite activists and people, Bonnie Goodman and Tracy Martin. Bonnie is rooted and lives here in Livingston. We're sitting in Bonnie's store right now, and in your gallery, I should say. And Tracy lives in Spokane. So welcome to our hen house, Bonnie and Tracy.
Hi, thanks for having us. Hello, everyone.
It's exciting because you've both been here before, and I just decided like 10 minutes ago, hey, guess what? You're going to sit down and talk to me. So I appreciate it. And, you know, we're shifting up sort of ramblings for the summer, and it gives me the opportunity to ramble with activists from various pockets of the country as I'm traveling around. And I had such a great and meaningful time in both Spokane and here in Montana. And so I'd love to start by just giving our listeners an idea of what you do in the world. So Tracy, we'll start with you. You've been on the podcast, as I mentioned, and you do something very special in Spokane.
Well, it's special for the rabbits. I'm a rabbit rescuer, and I have a small rescue called Rabbitron. And I also try to do a lot of activism for rabbits in particular, but of course all animals. But in the past, I've done an ad campaign for Rabbitron where it consists of TV ads, newspaper, and billboards.
Asking people to do what?
To not buy rabbits at Easter on a whim, because often people buy them for their kids, and in few weeks later, they may be abandoned. Mm-hmm. So there's a big problem with rabbits being abandoned. Yeah.
But we were talking about it. One thing that I thought was so cool is that you said that as a result of your outreach about rabbits, people are making other shifts in their lives. Can you speak to that for a minute?
Oh, yes. I think the rabbits are special in a certain way because they are herbivores, and people who have rabbits as pets tend to make that connection a little easier than other people, I think. So many of us who have rabbits have seen, because rabbits are used for everything from fur and experimentation and meat, all of the above. Everywhere you can use a rabbit, that's what's happening. So people make the connection because you can't believe anyone could do such harm to such sweet creatures.
But people are going vegan as a result of your outreach.
Yes, they are. And this is, a lot of it came from the Whole Foods situation where Whole Foods decided they would put rabbit in their meat case again. And that's just unacceptable. Adding another animal into the mix where we already have so much suffering. So what happened is a lot of people came forward, a lot of people spoke up, and we did demonstrations, and we wrote to them, and we talked to them, and we had some people very dedicated working on this. And as a result, so many people had their eyes open to the problems of using animals as product.
And they went vegan. That's so amazing. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit more about Spokane, but before I do, I want to chat with Bonnie. But before I do that, let's talk about how you and Bonnie first met, because I just learned this. Can you tell us how you first met and when that was?
Oh, yes. Bonnie and I met in 7th grade in gym class. And I was pretty much, I knew she was a kindred spirit when I saw her $6 Million Man t-shirt. And my pickup line to her was, have you seen Star Wars?
Can I just say Tracy had on Han Solo and Chewbacca, so we were instant best friends, needless to say.
Wow, it's so cool. I think it's funny because when I arrived here, I said, "Are you friends with Tracy?" And you were like, "Yes, since 7th grade." So tell our listeners where we're sitting right now.
We are in the back of Mordam Art, my little studio gallery in Livingston. And the noises you hear in the background, we're babysitting right now. We have like 4 shop cats in here right now. So if you need some pet therapy, come on down.
Well, so explain your gallery and what you have here.
Oh, okay. I make glass beads, and my husband's a painter. So this is our studio, and there's all sorts of oil paintings from Yellowstone Park views. And then I'm addicted to beads, so there's all kinds of beaded jewelry here as well.
And it's kind of like an animal rights safe space or something as well, because there's just advocacy everywhere you look.
We do have our Live and Let Livingston library is here, so anyone who wants to check out DVDs, cookbooks, books about any aspect of veganism, we have like a huge bookcase here, and we put on a monthly potluck too, just down the street. Once a month we have a vegan potluck here.
But in addition to that, you also incorporate messaging into your work, into your jewelry. You incorporate vegan messaging into it.
Oh yeah, those little zipper pulls that said quinoa and
go vegan. But there's more than that too. It's just it's everywhere. It's everything you do, it seems. Like the other day it was an art walk here in Livingston, and so the whole town comes out and walks through it because it's tons of galleries here. And here, what was the food you offered?
Oh yeah, I always make a vegan cupcake of some kind, inspired by the vegan cupcakes take over the world. And then I always hand out literature that has the recipe. On the back, there's usually a meme from Vegan Street, which Marla Rose said I could do.
And you had Miyoko's cheese.
Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me.
Because I was eating it.
Yeah, it was really fun because Miyoko's cheese is now in Livingston, and a lot of people haven't tried it yet. And so we served it at the art walk, and people could not believe it was vegan. And it was so much fun to see people be so delighted when they tried that stuff. And we used the black ash one. Have you guys seen that? Because it's so wild. I mean, it's called black ash, but yet when I opened it, I was shocked that it was black and had ash on it.
Yeah. And you had your cupcakes too, which Bonnie is famous for, her wonderful cupcakes.
I didn't get to try a cupcake, but I did have a waffle this morning that you made. So yeah, I did. So it's really exciting for me because I really admire the both of you and what you do to change the world for animals in such different ways. And I did 2 speaking engagements in Spokane and 2 in Montana, and now today I'm heading out to Denver, and it's just it's so happy and sad at the same time because I get to like make all these connections, and then I get sad when I leave. So if you see me sleeping in the back of your store, don't be surprised. But it's so cool, all of the work that you're doing. I'm curious, since you've been friends for do you want to say how many years it was?
7th grade, was that 77? I think so. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so a long time. So
the year of Star Wars.
Yeah. Okay, so you've been friends since the year of Star Wars. So who went vegan first? What's that story?
Oh, well, it's interesting because actually Bonnie was vegetarian and I wasn't, and she was a vegetarian for years, and I didn't make the connection. But then one year eventually I became vegetarian. I don't remember. It was a slow process.
We never even talked about it. It was never an issue. We never even had a conversation.
No, we never talked about it. But there was one year where I made the connection by sitting next to the friendly vegan that was the anonymous person who gave me the idea that I could be vegan. I asked her tons of questions. I was really interested. And she said Howard Lyman was coming to Spokane and I should go and see him. So I did, and it changed my life. He's a powerful speaker, and I really started learning to make the connection at that time. And then what happened is I came to visit Bonnie, and I had already been vegan for a while. I think it was almost a year because we live far enough apart. We don't get to see each other all the time. So, we sat up late just talking about
Weird Al concert.
Yeah.
She came for the Weird Al concert and we were talking about how he was vegan. And then we stayed up till 3 a.m. talking about it.
Yeah, and then after that, I mean,
The rest was vegan history. So, Bonnie, you went vegan at that time? Is that how it went?
Well, actually, I have to say, I was an ex-vegan several times. I didn't know about websites. I don't even know if there were cookbooks. I kept trying to go vegan intuitively, but I didn't know vegan was a thing, really. And I would try and then fail several times. It wasn't until Tracy got me Veganomicon for that year for Christmas. And it's like, okay, now I know how to cook. Thank you very much, Terry and Isa.
So it's just it inspires me and it gives me hope that you were a failed vegan because you're the most passionate. You know, I always say you're my favorite activist and you're the most passionate vegan I know, and you do such great work. But you weren't always this Bonnie Goodman.
No, I kept trying. I didn't know what I was doing. I ate way too much peanut butter and jelly. And then,
But is there a such thing?
but then it wasn't until and then another thing that Tracy did that really helped me, and she sent me this email. She said, "Have you heard of this podcast?" And it was Colleen Patrick Goudreau's Vegetarian Food for Thought. And that helped so much because at the time I was sick for a while, and I had like 3 little surgeries in a year. And so I think I had a lot of anesthesia in my system or something. Anyway, when I went vegan, I got really sick. I thought I had chronic fatigue. What is that?
Chronic fatigue syndrome. And I remember the episode of The Golden Girls when Dorothy was diagnosed with it, and she was like, finally, there's a word for it. And she was so happy. So whenever anyone talks about chronic fatigue syndrome, I think of B. Arthur.
I didn't feel well. I could barely get out of bed. I would call Tracy, and Tracy'd say, "Don't worry," because I was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure I don't need cheese?"
That's hilarious.
I mean, I was scared.
You thought that cheese would like make you feel less tired.
Well, because it's not like we had a lot of cheese, but we always had spinach salads, like every night, spinach salad with blue cheese on it and walnuts. That was our thing. And so leaving it off without the blue cheese, which was another thing that Tracy introduced us to, so we were addicted to that.
Yeah, we were cheeseaholics, and I mean, what I used to order in a restaurant would be like a cheeseburger. That's where I came from. And now I have gone, this will be my 10-year vegan-versary. Yes. So, you know, I made the connection later. I mean, most people are smart nowadays and they're going vegan when they're in their 20s, but
I know a lot of people go vegan later. I don't know if it discriminates with age, but anyway, it's that's so cool. And you mentioned the potlucks. Can you just speak about that for a minute?
Well, yes, because as it turns out, I went to the Let Live conference in Portland, yeah. And you were speaking there, and you were so inspiring. And I saw a lot of other people. I went to a lot of different talks there, and I came back and I was like, okay, I'm starting a potluck, and we got to just have a potluck here. And so the first few times I would put little press releases in the paper. We would have 4 people, including my husband and me. But now I've lost track of time. But now we average 30 to 40 people every month. And it's so much fun. And we have it at the senior center. And some of the seniors, you know, they live there upstairs in the apartments. And some of them come down. And it's a real community event. There's a lot of people that come that are vegan. And a lot of people that aren't even vegetarian. They just come because it's fun. And they're just like, you know, they're dipping their toe in there and learning some new skills. We always do a 5-minute cooking demo. And then I always show a 2 to 3 minute fun video. Mm-hmm. There's so many funny little videos on YouTube about veganism right now, so I try to show something that's not
light-hearted, right?
Not depressing.
Yeah.
So tell our listeners about the event that we had the other day in Livingston, and it was special because they had the juice tasting.
Yes, Jasmin came to my favorite restaurant, Wheatgrass Saloon, here in Livingston, and it's a raw restaurant with lots of juices and smoothies, and you did the most amazing book reading. Gosh, that was great. And then afterwards, they let us sample a couple of the different juices that they had.
That was the most special part. I mean, it was just so cool to be talking about my journey and how juicing played a role, and meanwhile, people are drinking juice, and it was just really cool. There was a lot of people who just had never really thought about veganism before. And so the work you're doing is really getting out there. I want to tell you a story about what happened the day before that when I was giving a talk at a bookstore in Bozeman called the Country Bookshelf, right? Mm-hmm. And the woman who introduced me said that she was a vegan, and which was so exciting. That was why they had me come out, because she was a vegan. And the audience, you did such a great job at getting press out here, because you not only do what you do, but you understand the value of media, and you send press releases all the time. And so there was a lot of press about the events, which was so cool in a really positive way. Yeah, it was all very positive and about veganism. And anyway, so there was this guy there who was very much trying to instigate a dialogue with me. He was one of those people who's sucking all of the energy out of the room, but he was also had like genuine questions, I guess. And he just kept saying, yeah, but what about if it's like part of your culture? What about, and what about if like whaling is part of your culture? And what about, he's going on and on. So then he says, what about if you're a hunter? And I finally said, how do you think I'm going to answer that question? Like, what do you think I'm going to say? Yeah. And so he was like, but what if you live off the grid and you are a hunter? And so that was so cool, because I don't know if you want to just talk briefly about your friends who were there, who I asked. I'll jump back into the story after you tell us who these people are. I asked them to answer that question, but who were these friends of yours who came to my talk?
Okay, I have this amazing friend named Nika White, and they do live in the mountains of Phillipsburg, Montana, like out in the middle of nowhere. They do have electricity, but they don't have water. They have to haul in water, and it's a serious drive on a dirt road to get out there. And they are all vegan.
And how many people are?
Nika has 7 children, and she had found her brother on Facebook, found out he was a vegan activist.
You mean they were separated at birth?
They were. Well, you're probably going to learn the story, because you're going to have to interview her sometime. She's a trip, but she's this Montana mountain woman, and she found her long lost brother on Facebook. He was a vegan activist, and so she did some research, and she was like, heck, we're all going vegan now. And the family was fine with it.
So all 9 of them, and she homeschools them. So it's really like their own little community there. And so they sort of live off the grid. I mean, certainly for me, I live in New York. She said to me, we were talking about how it's just like The Good Life, The Good Life, that book about people who was in the 40s, before the word vegan was even coined, who were vegan, but it wasn't called veganism. And they truly lived off the grid. And so she said, yeah, that's us. Anyway, so jump back to the Q&A and this guy asking me about hunting and about living off the grid. And so I asked Nika and her family to answer it. And I said to the kids, there's a lot of little kids, do you ever see wild animals on your property? And they were like, yes. And I said, okay, who are your favorite, like, what are your favorite animals to see? And just popcorn style, they were like, baby moose, deer, rabbits, coyotes. And I was like, and what do you like about them? And like the kids start saying, like, they're cute, they're smart, they're funny. And I said to the guy, there's your answer. I mean, like, it's not rocket science. And anyway, so it was just, I did appreciate the opportunity to have that discussion with him. And, I have to remember when I'm talking to people like that, sometimes they're trying to instigate me, but sometimes they just really want to know. He even said, he's like, I don't know any vegans, and someone raised their hand and said, you should come to the potluck on Sunday. So he might be there. But anyway, so Tracy, tell us a little bit more about what's going on in the animal rights and our vegan scene in Spokane, because it seems to be a growing community of people who are aware about animal issues there.
Spokane is getting better and better. And in the past, we used to have the little meetups, and there was only a few people. But now we've got full-on potlucks and a veg fest coming up. Josh Meckel is putting that together.
I spoke at that last year. It was really fun. It's definitely getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it's now. And we have stores with products, and we have 2 vegan restaurants, which is amazing, because we didn't have that just a few years ago. So in the 10 years that I've been vegan, I've seen huge changes and a lot more people coming forward, and so much more activity and activism and all of that.
One of the talks I gave when I was in Spokane was part of the Pride festivities. So it was just exciting to kind of have that connection being made between, just the fact that my story is a lot about animal rights and veganism, but also just having a background in LGBTQ activism and just being a queer person myself. So that was really exciting for me. And I think I see more and more people making the connection on a macro level just about social justice and about compassion for everybody. Do you see that?
I really think that's the heart of it. I mean, a lot of people are getting the idea that, vegans are onto something, because we're really about social justice for all, and we're not just people who don't like meat. Actually, many of us came from households that's what we ate.
Yeah, most of us, right?
Yeah. Can you tell me a story about one of your rabbits, either who is with you now or who has been with you in the past, just their story of where they came from and what they were like? Someone who really inched their way into your heart?
Well, they've all come to your heart in a certain way, but I have a couple of famous rabbits that are no longer with me. And one of them was named Ritter, and one of them was named Cowboy. Now, Cowboy got so famous, and he was one that he came from Kit, so he came through a few other homes before he got to me. But he was a internet sensation on Facebook, and people were checking in on his story every single day. In fact, I had one man, his name was Barry, and he looked at Cowboy's status when he was at the top of the Eiffel Tower, of all places. He had to check in and see what Cowboy was doing. And then
that's so funny. Where were they from? What was their story?
Oh, well, Cowboy, like all rabbits, I'm just going to tell you a Ritter story now. Ritter was found as a tiny itty-bitty baby that could fit in your hand in the middle of winter on Division Street in Spokane, which is like the busiest street. And she, obviously, we found a hole where she came out of. Her little mother dug a hole, and she was from abandoned rabbits, and then they reproduced. So they're semi-feral, but they're still domesticated rabbits. And what happened to her siblings, I have no idea, but someone found her and brought her to me. And she became my sweetest love rabbit, my heart bunny. And then, over the years, you just grow so close, and we were a special bond. And so, when you lose them, it just takes a piece of you away. But,
what are they like? I mean, I know that it depends on the individual, but what was Ritter like? What were some of Ritter's favorite things to do, or what was Ritter's general kind of affect in the world?
Ritter was an alpha female, because in rabbit culture, the females are in charge, and she bossed us all around. So she got her way, and she bossed the cat, she bossed us. She would growl if she didn't like something and box, and then she would want attention too. So she ruled the house with a furry paw.
That's really cute. Well, your sanctuary is very special, and I'm glad that I've been able to be there now a couple times, and I just think that the work that both of you are doing is so cool. Bonnie, I just have one final question for you. You have the most unique collection in your kitchen, and it's like I took like 35 pictures of it. What are you collecting?
As a joke to myself when I was sick a few years. When was that? Like 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I had a liver tumor. I had to have liver surgery. It was a little scary. As a joke to myself, I thought, I'm going to buy time. So I bought a time tin, and then
spice the time.
Yeah. So I collect spice tins that are time tins, and so over the last 10 years now, I guess I have like quite a collection now, and some of them are really old. And it's really, at first it was just a little joke with myself, and then it just became an actual collection. And it's kind of fun to see how the graphics change. Like I have some that are like 100 years old, and then every era. I think my favorite one's from the 50s, and the brand is Teen Queen Time.
I want that kind of time. If I'm gonna buy time, I want to be a teen queen. That is so cool. So can you both just tell our listeners where they can find you online?
Oh, the best place to reach me is probably my Facebook page, either my Tracy Martin page or my Rabbitron page, and I'm always checking that. So it's a good way to get a hold of me, or my rabbitron.com website, which is a little out of date, but it's still up. So,
And the best way to reach me is either Vegans Rock Montana on Meetup, or Live and Let Livingston on Facebook.
Well, I want to remind our listeners that Our Hen House is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So we rely on our listeners to continue to support our efforts to change the world for animals. So I hope you'll consider being a flock member. You could do so by going to ourhenhouse.org and clicking on donate. And a flock membership is $15 a month or more, or a one-time donation of $150, which will make you a flock member for a year. We will send you an Our Hen House tote bag. It is ethically sourced and vegan made, and it touts our tagline, change the world for animals. We will also invite you to join us in the Facebook private group for our flock, which is always a lot of fun. There's always some great discussion going on there. And you're also just knowing that you're going to support our efforts to keep our media free and high quality. And we not only have the Our Hen House podcast, but we also have the Teaching Jasmin How to Cook Vegan podcast and the Animal Law podcast. So remember to subscribe to all three of those podcasts separately on iTunes or wherever you want to listen to podcasts. You could also dedicate a podcast episode, which is $200, and that will also make you a flock member. And you could do so also at ourhenhouse.org by clicking on donate. And again, it's $200, and it will make you, you should go. That's okay. Bonnie's getting customers. It will make you a flock member. So I hope that you'll join the flock. And if you are listening to this and you like what you're hearing, please consider leaving us a friendly review, which you can do on iTunes. And it just takes a minute. And it is so helpful to us to get the word out there about our efforts and about our show. It makes a tremendous difference. And just spread the word in general, because a lot of people find out about our show through spreading the word. So I'm really grateful to you for that. As I mentioned, I'm on a book tour. So if you want to catch me in one of the cities I'll be visiting, go to jasminsinger.com. And you'll see my events there. You could also find me on Facebook at Jasmin Singer. On Twitter, I am Jasmin_Singer. I should mention there's no E on Jasmin, so it's JASMIN _singer. On Instagram, I am Jasmin Singer Author. And my book is called Always Too Much and Never Enough. It is memoir, and it's a roundabout journey toward seeking personal authenticity, which for me was a process that started when I learned the ways I was being betrayed by the food industry, in particular big ag or factory farming. And as I started to pick that apart, I realized the ways I was also betraying myself. So you could pick that up wherever books are sold. There's also an audiobook version of that. If you'd like to get in touch with us, please do email us at info@ourhenhouse.org. And you can also send us questions that you'd like us to answer on the air if you'd like. Again, it's info@ourhenhouse.org. So I'm very excited that Marianne Sullivan is joining us with your very favorite segment and mine, Rising Anxieties. Let's see what's going on in the world of rising anxieties this week.
The first sign that anxieties are rising out there, as they certainly are, is from Brownfield, Ag News for America. And we're grateful to Sandy Smith, our listener, for sending us this piece, which is about HSUS. And it's always a bit ironic about how the same things that drive people in the animal protection movement from time to time a bit crazy about HSUS, that they just never really are vegan enough, and they seem to really support humane agriculture, are the things that drive the ag industry crazy about them as well. And this article starts off, it's time to out the Humane Society of the U.S. For years, HSUS officials have dodged the question about HSUS as a vegetarian animal rights group. Apparently, the writer of this article, Steve Cuproot, has not heard about veganism. And you know, it's exactly how we always feel. Like, are they or aren't they? And, you know, it's fuzzy. And as he points out, the response is generally something like, a lot of our members are meat eaters, so, and that is actually the truth. But the ag industry wants to out them as a covert vegan operation, and are pointing out that in order to infiltrate the industry, a couple of weeks ago, HSUS proudly and loudly announced the formation of its National Agriculture Advisory Council. This group, 9 farmers and agriculturalists, i.e., you know, people who raise animals for food, like the quote unquote humane producers, And back to the article, from 8 states is built from 11 state agriculture advisory councils set up by HSUS in the 4 years. And we've been observing this work from HSUS with, occasional dismay, like how in bed with the quote unquote humane meat movement they really are. But it is reassuring to see how nutty this makes the meat industry. And he points out that the advisory council members are described as those who practice and promote higher animal welfare standards within their operations. So he asks, that statement begs the question, higher than what? Well, like higher than normal. Like, what do you think? Higher than standard operating procedures. We all know what that means. He's acting, it's so stupid. But then he's pointing out that what HS really wants is what they say in their press release when they approve of the 3 R's, reducing or replacing consumption of animal products and refining our diets by choosing products from sources that adhere to higher animal welfare standards. Well, he doesn't believe the third one. And he just thinks that all they want to do is reduce or replace. And, all of us are hoping that that's true. So it is odd that the very things that drive us crazy for one reason are the things that drive them crazy for the total opposite reason. He's pointing out that what he considers important is that HSUS is publicly admitting that its priority is to reduce or replace meat, poultry, and dairy in the diet. And I'm delighted that they're making that public. Of course, that's not their exclusive mission. And we all know that. And, it's the exclusive mission of other animal rights organizations, but not HSUS. But he thinks it's their secret agenda. And I certainly hope he's right. And among the other things that he talks about, he's discussing an article in Politico which was about Meatless Mondays, which is the thing like they're really up in arms about. And we'll have a couple of other evidences of that in Rising Anxieties today. And this article in Politico was called Humane Society Looks to Spread Meatless Mondays. And as he points out, the article reports that HSUS has a full-time meatless transition team of 15. I knew they had, we've had some of these people on and really doing fascinating work, getting cafeterias and other food providers around the country to reduce the amount of meat that is in the food that people are eating. And I had no idea that they had 15 people employed doing that. That's pretty cool. And says that it's convinced 200 school districts to cut meat offerings. It's pretty sad. We got to up that number. 200 school districts. There's a lot of school districts in this country. And also other providers, hospitals, senior homes, corporate cafeterias, all reducing meat. And this is the one that I think really drives them crazy. The U.S. Coast Guard Academy in New London, in Connecticut, has cut meat consumption by as much as 10% in 3 years. And then catering groups, they're pointing specifically to the Compass Group, which is the world's largest catering company, says it's reduced beef purchases by 10%. And this is making them crazy. And I couldn't be more delighted. And the issue goes on in as I said, in other articles, and one of them is from Mercy for Animals. Why is this senator so scared of Meatless Monday? And I just love this story. This is about Iowa Senator Joni Ernst, and she is one piece of work. And this article as well points out with the fact that the Coast Guard Academy recently cut its meat consumption by 10%. And this is making Senator Joni Ernst, who is a meat industry shill, if there ever has been, crazy. And she has now introduced federal legislation that would stop the Department of Defense from spending any money on this or any other program to reduce the amount of meat served to military personnel. I mean, seriously? And her argument is that the daily meat consumption is needed to satisfy the dietary guidelines for Americans. She apparently hasn't read the dietary guidelines, which are now recommending eating less meat and eggs. And like she's just trying to force, like she doesn't even want to give people the option of not having meat on the menu. She wants them to be forced. And she has clearly been in the meat and I mean she's just a meat industry person. She actually became famous when she ran for election in 2014, and she had a campaign advertisement called Squeal, in which she told, it was a television ad in which she told the viewers, I grew up castrating hogs on an Iowa farm, so when I get to Washington, I'll know how to cut pork. And she thinks that's funny. She also received nearly $200,000 from agribusiness during that campaign. So we know where she's coming from. And what's really nice to know is that she's apparently getting very anxious. I mean, the military is even trying to cut down on meat, in spite of the Senate trying to force it down their throats. Really, really exciting news. Our next article, on a totally different subject and actually in a totally different country. This is from the UK, and it's from the Express, both the Daily and the website for the Daily and Sunday Express, which are, kind of tabloid type newspapers. And this is the title. 500,000 people are now vegan in the UK. Would you try bizarre restrictive diet? I just love that title. I mean, if 500,000 people are doing it, can it be that bizarre? I mean, doesn't bizarre kind of mean unusual? And the article isn't really that hostile. It's just the title that's so completely hilarious. Vegans only eat plants, such as vegetables, grains, nuts, and fruits, and foods made from plants. And it's pointing out that the number of vegans in the UK is rising. It's still not, nearly as high as we would like it to be. But as that's happening, quote, meat eaters are feeling increasingly threatened. Like, what are they threatened by? Seriously, I wish they were threatened, but, I wish they were threatened of having to be forced to change their diet, but sadly they're not. Like, just a few vegans around, and they're all, terrified. It's unbelievable. And the article goes on to point out, after all, there is nothing worse than going for a meal and having the judging eyes of a vegan watching as you chow down on a juicy steak. I mean, first of all, nothing worse? Like, in the whole entire world, you can't think of anything worse than that? And then, I don't really care if somebody's judging me, if I think they're wrong. The reason you care that somebody's judging you is they're right. So, in the UK, as in the United States Senate, anxieties are clearly rising. Now, finally, you would think these articles would stop at some point. You really would. But apparently they don't. This is from the Munchie section of Vice.com, which is, I think, where they report on food stories. This is one by one Daisy Meager, and this is the title. You're gonna plots. Sorry, vegans. Scientists say that plants can feel stress. Seriously, we're going back to this. They can't get off it. And what's really ironic is that what the way she starts off is it shows kind of basically where she's coming from. I'm just going to quote the beginning. We're constantly being told how much better the world would be if we ditched the chicken wings and triple-decker beef burgers for a veggie way of life. But next time your vegan friend embarks on a graphic retelling of Food, Inc., when you're midway through a ham sandwich, here's something to whip out and wipe the smile off their smug, salad-munching face. God, these people are so hostile. I mean, honestly, the guilt that comes out. So then she goes on to quote, there's this new, this is unbelievable. There's a new article out in the Journal of Pineal Research, and that she says that this shows that plants suffer stress. And that means that it's bad that we eat them. And the study, she quotes from the study, exogenously, this is where she gets this conclusion. Exogenously applied melatonin resulted in higher ABA concentration in the drought-prime plants than in the non-prime plants when exposure to cold stress. The interplay of melatonin and ABA leads to plants maintaining better water status. And that is where she gets the idea that we should worry about the feelings of plants. I mean, obviously, they're not using the word stress in the way that we use the word stress when we say, oh my God, I'm so stressed out. I have to finish this paper and I have a dentist appointment tomorrow and I don't know how I'm going to. That's not the kind of stress they're talking about. Like when they're talking about plants, they're just plants that aren't getting enough water, they're under like some kind of physiological stress. It doesn't mean that they're actually upset about it. It's kind of hilarious. But she does point out that there are other studies that explore the extent to which plants are aware of their environment, which this study doesn't. The study completely doesn't, and their reactions to external factors. And then, this I thought was the really interesting part. Even Hollywood is getting in on the action with an upcoming kids film, worryingly titled Sausage Party. I don't know why that's worrying. Set to explore the horror sentient veg experience when being peeled, boiled, and eaten. Now, I need to find out more about that movie because that sounds like a serious case of rising anxieties. More to come.
And now Marianne Sullivan is joining us once again to give us the latest on current events from the world of animal rights. So let's get right into some news, shall we?
Our first story today is from The Guardian, and it is big, big news. China's plan to cut meat consumption by 50%, cheered by climate campaigners. I mean, my only question is, can this possibly be true? Because this is extraordinary news. And can they pull this off? I mean, if they can pull this off and they can really change Chinese meat consumption, this would save more animals than anything that any of us could ever think of doing in our lives. And apparently this is from the Chinese government, and they have outlined a plan to reduce citizens' meat consumption by 50%. And this is being widely touted by climate campaigners, and that seems to be one of the main impetuses behind this. Though also it's designed to improve public health and are part of the dietary guidelines. They release dietary guidelines every 10 years. And unlike in the United States, they seem to have actually done something really huge. And also they allow themselves to be motivated by benefit to the environment, which seems only sensible because it would seem to improve public health that we would be able to have air to breathe and that we wouldn't be drowning because of the effects of climate change. Among the people who are promoting this on Chinese television are Arnold Schwarzenegger and James Cameron. Arnold Schwarzenegger was a bit of a surprise. He's not vegan, unlike James Cameron, who is the director, of course. But apparently he has been cutting down on his own meat consumption, and he is now doing these ads for Chinese television, public information ads. I mean, this still involves persuading people to do this. Hopefully the Chinese government is able to be very persuasive because this would be huge. Apparently the average Chinese person now eats between 63 kilograms of meat a year. Now eats approximately 63 kilograms of meat a year. And it's going up and up and up, and then they expect it to add another 30 kilograms of meat per person by 2030 if things don't change. And the goal of the new guidelines is to reduce the annual consumption to anywhere from 14 kilograms to 27 kilograms. And hopefully, maybe we can get to 0 kilograms. There's a good goal. And, what's really amazing, I mean, China is so huge that it consumes an enormous percentage of the world's meat. 28% of meat in general, half of the world's pork. But what's important to remember is that per capita, China still lags behind a lot of countries. So each American or Australian consumes twice as much meat per person compared to China. Don't you think that we could cut down just a little bit? This is huge news. This is a real game changer, and it would save just an incalculable number of animals from hideous suffering. Let's hope that this really comes to pass. Our second story of the week, I got it from Mercy for Animals press release. Hidden camera video uncovers animal abuse and neglect at Eggland's best supplier. And this is an undercover video in the state of Washington at a number of suppliers for Eggland's Best, which is, some cockamamie outfit that sells eggs. And the video, of course, shows the typical horrors, the standard battery cage facility, thousands of birds packed into these filthy cages. They can't They can barely move without crawling over other birds. The sick and injured one are left to suffer and slowly die. They keep telling getting these videos. I mean, how long have I been reporting on this? And the videos show the same horrors, and everybody says, "Isn't that awful?" And nothing happens. It's just, well, I shouldn't say nothing happens. Of course, there's been some progress, but why is this still happening? Why is this still happening? And thank you to Mercy for Animals for demonstrating to everybody it's still happening, and hopefully for getting more and quicker and more dramatic changes. We are slowly, glacially moving towards cage-free. Hopefully, that we need to do so much more than that. Our final story of the week is one that you may have heard of. This is a pathetic, horrible story. And this is from National Geographic. Jaguar paraded at Olympic torch ceremony, shot dead. And this is one of these stupid torch ceremonies that, they do at the Olympics. And they go around, they run around with this torch and hand it to each other. And they have ceremonies here and there. And this is in Manaus, Brazil. And for some reason, they thought it would be cool to have this heavily chained up jaguar, beautiful, beautiful big cat, sitting there on the stage as they pass this torch around. I'm sure that's just what a jaguar wants to do. And there's actually a cartoon jaguar that's the symbol of the Olympics because it's apparently, one of the iconic animals of Brazil. Now, if they want to have a cartoon jaguar, I have no problem with that. Why do they have to have a live jaguar? And then, as if that's not bad enough, then apparently the jaguar escaped from its handlers at the zoo that it apparently lived in, which is it's attached to an Army training center there. I don't know why there is a zoo attached to an Army training center, but the jaguar escaped and reportedly approached a soldier in spite of the fact that it was tranquilized, and the soldier killed it. I mean, really? The only thing that I can say that adds a hopeful note to this horrible story is that all of these stories that are coming out, I mean, most recently Harambe the gorilla, and now this big cat, people are really horrified by this and are starting to take a second look at captivity of these extraordinary animals. And so I'm glad it's getting attention, but I'm pretty pissed off that it happened in the first place. And that's this week's news.
Steve Jenkins and Derek Walter, aka Esther's dads, are from Campbellville, Ontario, where they live with Esther, 2 dogs, 3 cats, and over 40 other rescued farm animals at their farm sanctuary called Happily Ever Esther. Esther was supposed to be a mini pig, but at over 650 pounds, Esther has turned out to be anything but a mini pig. While sharing their adventures on social media, including Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, in just a few short years, Steve, Derek, and Esther have gained a following just shy of 1 million people from all around the world. Using nothing but her smile and a sense of humor, Esther the Wonder Pig has become a social media powerhouse and played a major role in the decisions of countless people to adopt an Esther-approved vegan lifestyle. Learn more at estherthewonderpig.com. Today, you're going to hear from Steve and Derek all about the brand new book, all about Esther, and it's called Esther the Wonder Pig.
Welcome to our hen house, Steve and Derek. And I understand Esther is also there as well?
That's right. The 3 of us are here in our living room in Campbellville.
Well, it's just such an exciting moment to be talking to you. And because your book is coming out, and because your book is coming out, the fact that your book is coming out is just one of the huge events that have been occurring in your life as of late. And I really want to catch up with your life since last we spoke. And let's talk about the sanctuary. Share with us the story of moving to the sanctuary and what it was like those first few days.
Well, I mean, the first, it was quite a build-up, right, to get us here. We felt like we were running, we were running a marathon to get everything packed up and get us here and work out a lot of the details. But the first couple of days were really surreal, waking up in a different house and a totally different surrounding. and just all different challenges in front of us. I mean, there wasn't a scrap of fencing up on the property when we got here. So we had to closely monitor Esther when she was outside because it was, limitless.
It was a game changer.
Yeah, it was a total game changer.
Are you like
deep?
Are you deep in the country there?
Yes, we're 45 minutes.
It feels deep in the country. Like, we're in a really neat spot. There's this thing, it's called the Niagara Escarpment that runs through the GTA, and we're just on the far side of the Niagara Escarpment. So it's almost like when you cross that, it's like, it's our version of a mountain. It's maybe 200 feet high. It's really kind of embarrassing. But it's this, we're just on the other side of that. And as soon as you cross that side of the escarpment, we could basically see Toronto. We could see the CN Tower from our front door if the escarpment wasn't in the way. We're that close, but it feels like you're in a different world. And we're on 50 acres. So even our closest neighbor is, hundreds of feet away. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like 1,000 feet in either direction,
true enough.
right?
Yeah,
like
1,000 feet. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, we had neighbors all around us in Georgetown, and watching us closely. And but as soon as we got out here, it was, it was like a whole different world. It was pretty crazy. I mean, the best things were getting the dogs out here and being able to run with them, and of course, getting Esther the space that she needed, and just running. I mean, just her ripping a strip, that was like one of the best. The first time
we got to see her flat out run in a straight line. We'd see her run in Georgetown in our little backyard, but to see her get into a big open space and just run full tilt was amazing. Yeah, it was really cool. And to walk with her and the dogs off leashes, just roaming around, it was an amazing experience. It was really, really cool.
It sounds amazing. I think there's no greater pleasure than watching an animal who has not been able to run really take off. And of course, I mean, I'm starting this interview assuming that everyone out there knows about Esther, and I imagine all of our listeners do. But of course, Esther was a pig who you unwittingly you adopted her wittingly, but unwitting about the fact that she was growing to grow into a very large pig, and ultimately that was what caused you to move to your sanctuary. And I understand that the money to start this sanctuary came from all over the world, and I just think that is so emblematic of the love that Esther has garnered all over the world. Can you explain?
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, that crowdfunding campaign we did, it ran for 60 days. We started it in, I think it was early May, right, Derek? And it ended early July. But we had almost, I think it was 9,000 donors, and they came from well over 40 countries, 45 or 48 countries or something like that, all over the world, that contributed to that campaign. And we raised over $440,000 in those 60 days. It was unreal. And it just happened so quickly. Like, we started the page in December, and then we had this campaign going by May. Things were so fast that we knew we had to move. And we only had planted the seed with the page to say, we're thinking of moving. We know we've got to move. We're thinking of buying a farm and opening a sanctuary. What do you think? And the response from our supporters, about 100,000, I think at the time, was overwhelmingly positive. And, led to that crowdfunding campaign and ultimately us getting the farm. Like, it was just amazing. And it was less than a year from when we first kind of started the Facebook page to when we moved to the farm. We started the page in December, and we were on the farm by November of that following year. Like, it just happened so fast and furiously. It was unbelievable.
And now I understand from your website, you're actually a registered charity.
That's right. Yeah. Happily Ever Esther Farm Sanctuaries, registered charity up here in Canada. And we're working on getting our 501c3 for the States as well. That's a whole other process on its own. I mean, that was a lot of work to get that done. That's a big undertaking up here in Canada.
Now, Esther is a phenomenon, and she has, through your Facebook page, just through Facebook, she has garnered attention all over the world, as you pointed out. But I'm interested to know why you focused on your next step being a sanctuary. Why do you believe that this is the way to reach people, the next way, the additional way, the next step in reaching people with Esther's and other animal stories?
Well, I mean, Esther gave the sanctuary such a platform to keep people excited for farmed animals, and really getting people firsthand experience and actually looking at animals in the eyes, like firsthand, getting to meet some of the people that we have here. Just they don't have those experiences all over the place. Like it's people have never met a cow, or people have never met a pig firsthand, and we're giving that experience out here, and letting people marvel and just how smart these creatures are.
Yeah, and we also found, like, when we were unsure what we were going to do, like, there were times where we questioned whether or not we could keep Esther and how we were going to handle what was happening to us. So, like, well before the Facebook page existed, and when we started to kind of look at what our options might be, that was when we first learned that there was even such a thing as a farm sanctuary. So, I think people within the animal rights movement are very aware of sanctuaries and their purpose and what they do and where they are. But, the general population doesn't even know that this is a thing, that a farm sanctuary is a thing. At least we didn't. And so I think Derek and I both kind of use ourselves as benchmarks for when we're deciding to do things, as far as how we handle Esther's page and her persona and all of that. It's very calculated in how we respond and present things, because we look at it through our eyes, and we're accidental activists. This wasn't a lifelong thing of ours. It happened because of Esther. So we look at it, I think, through very different eyes than most activist groups that are out there. And that's how we've presented Esther, with this happiness and kindness attitude. And the same thing with Happily Ever Esther Farm Sanctuary is it's a really happy place and a magical place. And, people are drawn here. I think a lot of people are drawn here because they want to meet Esther and see that. But then we're able to keep them here for everything else that's going on at the farm. And people that had never, ever visited a farm sanctuary in their life before are becoming regular volunteers, and getting involved in a sanctuary. And then we hear that they happen to go to another sanctuary as well, so they're not just coming here, spreading around, or, people that ask us, oh, I wish I could come. I wish I could meet you guys and Esther and blah, 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 and help at the farm. It's the prime opportunity to say, well, you know what? I bet you anything that you've got a sanctuary around the corner from you. You just don't even know that they're there. So it's really helped bring awareness to sanctuaries in general, that we exist, and that there are people doing what we're doing elsewhere, as far as the sanctuary is concerned.
I think you just said something. There's just something so important in what you're saying, and something we all need to attend to. And that is the fact that this happened to you so accidentally and so suddenly. And it happens to us all accidentally, I think, to some extent. Something touches us about animals, and we move into this world. But yours was really just, you had such spectacular success so quickly, and you were able to communicate with people. And I think that's something that's so important for all of us to remember, that we can lose perspective by being in this movement too long and seeing too much. And we have to kind of do what you did and refresh our ability to see it the way other people see it.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think both Derek and I are the same way. I mean, I can't handle the graphic imagery and that sort of stuff. It's always something, always that I've had a wall about me. I couldn't handle that. I just didn't want to watch it. But at the same time, I loved my steak, and loved my bacon. I just was able to ignore it. And I think Esther, for us, pulled that wall down in a really weird way. Nobody told us that we had to do anything. She did it by being herself. And that's what made us realize, people that probably, I shouldn't say probably, who knows, but based before Esther, I never thought I would be living this kind of a lifestyle. So she really opened our eyes to that. And that's what we're trying to get across to other people is, just by getting to know these animals and, see them for what they really are. That was the trigger for us. It wasn't because somebody told us we had to, or that we weren't doing it fast enough, or we weren't doing enough. Esther inspired us to do everything that we've done. And she did it just by being absolutely hilarious to live with and having the most amazing character and personality that, makes you want to do better for her.
There's something so special about the way, I mean, obviously it's you speaking for her on social media. I mean, I'm assuming that she doesn't actually type those entries out, though I wouldn't put it past her.
We'll never tell.
Yeah, we can't tell you.
I mean, it's obviously a device, but there's something so authentic about her. And I think it's something a lot of us do for the animals we live with. They have a voice that we make up, but it's not totally made up. You haven't just made up a personality for Esther. Do you think of yourself as interpreters?
I think 100%. You know, I mean, we spend a whole lot of time going through photos and coming up with captions and stuff. And a lot of stuff we do on the fly. Like nothing's scheduled on Esther's page, very rarely, unless we've got a crazy day, I might schedule a few posts ahead. But other than that, I mean, we're posting as you see it. And it's because it's based on what she's doing at that particular time, and I think that's how we're able to make the captions relate so well to the photos or what she's doing is because we're trying to literally give her the voice of what was happening at that time. I'm not just blankly pulling a photo and trying to make it say something. We know what she was doing at that time. Like a video this morning, for example, she had got up and she went outside for a pee and we didn't follow her right away to go and get her breakfast, which we keep in the barn now. So she came back to the house, swung open the door and came storming back in the living room again because we took too long, so that's where the caption comes, could you send the server out? I've been waiting out here forever, like it's just kind of an extension of what she was doing at that time, and I think that's what makes it so relatable.
Is she really that funny?
Oh, she's hilarious, Marianne. It's hysterical.
Yeah, it's like clockwork. You can tell just what she needs and just what she wants, just based on her body language, or time of day is a dead giveaway too.
It really is amazing how she comes through. And as I said, how authentic it feels. It does not feel like you're just fictionalizing this animal. It feels like you're actually interpreting for her, or that maybe she's doing it herself. I'm not going to guess as to what really goes on there at the sanctuary. Before we talk about other things, I want to talk about, I know Esther is the star of stars, but tell us a bit about the other animals at your sanctuary.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have all different kinds of animals here at the sanctuary. We have cows, a donkey, a horse. We've got rabbits, sheep, and goats, and of course a whole bunch of pigs. So I could highlight our eldest pig, Bear. Everybody always asks us how long does a pig live? And well, Bear is 16 years old, and he is a saddleback, a British saddleback pig, and he's about 1,000 pounds, just under 1,000 pounds. Except he's got severe arthritis in his back legs, and he's no longer mobile. And I get to spend a whole lot of time with Bear, and he's a real special guy. He's, even though he is debilitated and he can't walk anymore, I mean, he is still a huge spirit in that barn. He's still with his pig friends, Bobby, Lenny, and Dan, and they're kind of like they're a bonded quad. They've created a family, and Bear, although he is debilitated, I mean, he's the first one up in the morning and the last one to bed at night, and he's so full of stories, and he's the most talkative, and Bear's got stories. Bear's one cool guy.
Yeah,
and
he's awesome.
Despite his disabilities, he's still rocking it. And he's, in human years, he would be like 100 years old, Bear's a real special guy.
Escalade and BJ,
yeah. Horse and donkey. They are before the sanctuary even came to fruition and we knew it was going to be this property, a couple had reached out to us about their horse and donkey that they had. And they were trying to find a home for because, unfortunately, they were both terminally ill. They're caretakers, not BJ and Escalade. And so we started to try to find a home for those guys, and number one, we always try to find a home first for the animals. We reach out and see if we know anybody that's looking, for an addition to their family. We always try to see if we can fix the problem. We find out what the problem is at home. And in this case, with BJ and Escalade and their parents being terminally ill, we can't really fix that. So the next step was try to find a home. And we quickly discovered that you can't find a home for a horse, but you can find a home for a donkey. Everybody wants a donkey for their farm because they're the protectors of the farm. They will make sure that any unwanted coyotes or wolves and stuff like that, if they were to come into the field, a donkey will bellow out and scare it away or chase after it. It'll chase it down. So it's a real great security feature for a farm is to have a mule.
Yeah. But Escalade's screen, you can barely touch him, so nobody wanted him basically, and they're inseparable, these two. If you move one to the other side of the fence, the other one loses his mind, and we just couldn't bear to see them separated. So they came here, and still they're together every day. You might have seen a video of them, the horse and dog. They run and play like you wouldn't believe. It's amazing to see them together and how fast Escalade is. And he's come a mile, Derek, since we got here. And you can approach him now. He's still very skittish, but you can approach him and touch him, and he'll take food from you. And it's really cool. But again, they have no expectations here either, which is kind of the neat thing. If they want to be social and come and get love, great. If not, they do what they want to do in their pasture. It's up to them, which is the really cool thing that we're able to provide them here, is that there are no expectations from any of the animals. Even Esther, I know people come here specifically because they want to see her. There are days that she's not out while there are people here, and that's too bad. It's unfortunate, but if she doesn't want to come out, she doesn't want to come out. It's just the way it is. It's really cool. Like I said, it's awesome to be able to do that for them and to just let them do whatever they want, whenever they want.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful thought. It's a very beautiful thought for any animals, and including us for that matter. So it sounds like your sanctuary is already amazing, but what are your plans for the future?
Well, we're taking things one day at a time, of course, but we do have a 5-year plan. We are in year 2 now, and on year 5, ultimately, we would like to have a couple of guest cabins that are here available, so that people can come and stay for an extended amount of time, and work with us at the farm, and also have a place to stay. We have outreach programs that we want to start with regards to local school boards so that we can start getting some bus loads of kids in here to meet some animals firsthand. So we're working hard for that, and we're just, we're expanding. The farm here was not totally fenced, like I said, when we got here. So we've been fencing as fast as we can, all of the pastures, and everything's not yet closed in. The interior part of the farm is closed in, but there's lots of room to grow. So we're fencing some of the other fields so that we can start to have room for rotation of the animals now on the fields. We've discovered it's important that you rotate your animals and always have a field empty so that field is regrowing. So we're fencing away as fast as we can. We have an enormous vegetable garden that we started this year for the animals of the sanctuary. And when I say enormous, it is quite huge. I can't believe how big it is. But it's
going to be a big project.
Wow. Yeah.
And we're not ruling out other things like down the road, the expansion to maybe another farm in another location or even another country. We've been presented with some pretty neat situation here with Esther's online presence that, to expand to a farm potentially in the States or somewhere else is entirely out of the question. It's definitely not something that's happening tomorrow, but, we're trying to think of any and every potential direction that we can take it, to have the most impact in the most places. So, and we've been asked, it's kind of neat, we've been asked by other people that already have sanctuaries in other countries. I remember one in Italy in particular, do you remember, that wanted to become part of the Happily Ever Esther kind of family, so that's, again, something that we aren't considering at the moment, but maybe looking into in the future is other ways to, do more elsewhere. We can only do so much where we are, and Esther's Army online has been amazing at helping facilitate relocations all over the world, which is awesome. But it would be really cool to have a farm in some of these other places to actually get a little bit more hands-on in these different areas.
It sounds completely amazing. And I love the idea of Esther being an empress. It seems appropriate to her personality. And you have brought together the extraordinary ability of sanctuary. I mean, it's always been a question of how sanctuaries could take the fact that they are so powerful in reaching people, but they're only in one place. And you seem to have really come up with, I mean, because you started as an online presence and then went to the sanctuary, it seems like you have such a powerful message that you can really do have the ability to spread very, very far. And I love the idea of there also being these sanctuaries everywhere that people can be part of the online presence, but also touch base with the reality of the animals. It's really a beautiful idea. And speaking of spreading your voice and taking it far and wide, let's talk finally about the book. Tell me about the book.
Well, the book has been a long process. We started that right around the time we were working on the crowdfunding campaign. The book came, first to the table just after Esther kind of started online. And I mean, the whole idea of the book is following the story of how she came to be, who Derek and I were before she arrived, how we got her, and what happened at home as a result. And that was kind of where it was supposed to end. And then we through the process with the crowdfunding campaign and the sanctuary and all that sort of stuff, expanded the idea of the book to include an end with us arriving at the sanctuary. So it covers about 2 years worth of time, I would say, is the book's timeline. And it covers all of it, from the ups and downs to, oh my God, we've got a pig, we love her, to I don't think we can handle this, we've got to get rid of her, to the Facebook page and everything that happened as a result of that. So it's a pretty intense book. I mean, it's very funny and very lighthearted, but of course there's the very serious undertone to it of what we realized as a result of living with her and what we're now trying to achieve with her and for her.
Who would you say is your target audience for the book?
Non-vegans, for sure, because they're the ones that we think can learn the most from Esther. And it's one of the things that we have struggled with a lot on our page, is the way that we present everything and the way that we present our message and our story. We do sometimes take criticism for, being told we're not doing enough, or we don't say enough, or we're not direct enough in the way that we present our message. And, that's just not our style. And that's not the way that we worked before. And that's not what worked for us to help us, change our mind. And so our book is very much directed at people that are like us, that loved animals. And Derek and I always thought we were animal lovers, yet we had that wall built up, between Esther and animals like Esther and our, quote, companion animals, dogs and cats. So I think those are the people that will benefit the most and hopefully can learn the most from the book. As well as, of course, people thinking about getting pigs as pets. Obviously they're incredible pets and we would not trade Esther for the world. However, the work that was involved to get what we have now, was unbelievable. And you'll see that reading the book that, there were times that I think both of us didn't think we could do it, and we're ready to throw in the towel, and we were in tears, because we thought our house was being ruined and our relationship was being ruined and we didn't know what to do with her. It was incredibly intense, but at the same time, we didn't know what we could do with her. There were no options available. What do you do with a 500-pound pig that is a house pet? Sanctuaries were full. They didn't have room. And we didn't even know until we were looking into that farm sanctuaries existed. So I mean, it was a really, really intense experience. And I want to make sure people know that, we still see, and it's terrifying when people say on the page, oh my God, I want to get an Esther, and our heart sinks because that's not what we're about. I mean, like I said, she's incredible and I wouldn't trade her for anything, but my heart sinks to think of people trying to do it without being fully aware of how much work it was and what we had to sacrifice, and of course what we've gained as a result. But there was definitely some very, very trying and challenging times.
It's really heroic what you've achieved, but it really does come through that this was it's a monumental undertaking, and people way too casually do take on animals. But I really am so grateful that you did. But I'm not sure I know of any other two people who could have pulled it off. You are relentless people. There's no doubt about it. A lot of the people listening to this, they're going to want to read your book because it's a beautiful story. But it's not your target audience. A lot of them are vegan, or most of them are vegan. But I know a lot of them are going to want to gift this book to non-vegan friends and family and try to, it's one more way to try to reach people. And it's a great tool. And I just wonder what your suggestions would be for what messaging they should use when gifting this book to encourage people to feel that something's not being forced on them, they're not being pushed, but that they really might want to hear the message in this book.
Yeah, that's a hard one, I think. Derek, what are your...
I think that, at the core of it, Esther's message is that change starts with education and an open mind. And, that's the core of it. And we keep quoting that. And that kindness is magic, and it's such a hard thing to pull down everybody's interpretation. I just think that people just need to have an open mind. They can't look at it as anybody being, policing them or anybody pushing any values on them. I think they just need to sit back and just look at what it is that we're doing when we fill our freezers full of dead animals. It's
well, you've got to remember though, you've got to be a bit soft when you're approaching a non-vegan friend, and probably saying that won't be the best way to do it.
I know, but it's
just about being kind, and the book, we tried to make it very funny, and very lighthearted, and very much in line with Esther's personality online, but keeping in mind it's told from our perspective. So, I guess we should put out the disclaimer there. There is a couple of swear words in the book. No. We've seen a lot of people say that they want to get it for their kids' library or they can't wait for their kids to read it. And this one probably isn't for the kids. It's very easy to edit. There's, I think, 3 or 4 in the whole book. But our response to that always, if you don't think raising a 650-pound pig in your house called for a few strong words at times, you're fooling yourself. But the book really is very honest and, matter of fact and funny and lighthearted. And I think anybody would enjoy the story. We just hope they catch the underlying message below. And I think we've done a really good job of tying that in, both in the way the book's been dedicated and the way it's structured and the way we wrap it all up. That we hope you get lost in the story and have that, oh my God moment at the end, as we kind of tie it back together. And of course, there's a few points in the middle as we discuss, we actually had bacon on the stove, while we had Esther and Shelby at our feet in the kitchen. And how we made that connection at that point, that we could no longer eat bacon and pork. But we hadn't decided then that we were going to give up chicken and beef. That came a couple of days later, as you'll see in the book. It's a very, very honest, I think, and open and upfront telling of kind of what we went through and how we became who we are now. These advocates and speaking up for animals like Esther and all farmed animals.
Well, I think it's a very powerful way to tell a story. And I think that your reluctance, your obvious reluctance to go in this direction, it really shines through. And it's an incredibly hopeful message because you're honest about that you didn't just find out what was going on and say, oh, I'm going to be perfect from now on. It was a struggle. And I think that's incredibly empowering for people. And I really do hope that people buy this book for their friends and family. And it's got Esther's picture on it. So of course, they'll read it just because of that. Beauty talks.
Absolutely. At its core, it's a bit of a love story, I guess, two guys that fell in love with an animal, whether it be a pig or a dog or whatever it was, it happened to be Esther in our case, and yeah, like I said, we had a ton of fun with it. And I'd like to think it's a very funny and uplifting story, with a very serious message behind it.
So tell us where people can get I assume they can get the book wherever books are sold, but any special information on that, and also tell them if they're not Facebook fans of Esther, how they can find you everywhere online.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find us, of course, on Esther the Wonder Pig's Facebook, or you can go to the website, estherthewonderpig.com, and
it's got links, I think, to all of our social media.
Yeah, on the website, it also points you to the direction of the major retailers that have the book, like Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon and Barnes & Noble, Chapters Indigo, Books A Million, and it's going to be in a bunch of different languages as well. It's coming out here I say here as Canada and in the United States. And then it's also coming, I believe, in Italy and Japan and Germany and France and Poland and Australia and the UK and all over the place. And those publication dates follow closely behind. I think May 31st and June 1st and middle of June and that sort of stuff. So I think they should be out everywhere by the time we're listening to this.
Well, it's great, and I'm sure that everybody listening is turning to Amazon right at this moment or somewhere else to go buy it, because it's a great book. And thank you so much for writing it. Thank you so much for finding Esther and taking care of her, and for all you do. And I hope someday you will have those cabins, and I'm going to come take a vacation at the sanctuary.
Yes, please do. You're going to love it.
Thanks for joining us today on Our Hen House.
Hey, thank you so much. Have a great one.
Thank you.
This was the 337th episode of Our Hen House. Thank you so much for joining us. Check out ourhenhouse.org. Subscribe to the Our Hen House podcast, the Animal Law podcast, and the Teaching Jasmin How to Cook Vegan podcast, all separately on iTunes or wherever you like to listen to podcasts through. Please consider leaving us a friendly review. Please consider becoming a flock member, which you can do at ourhenhouse.org by clicking on donate. And it's $15 a month or a one-time donation of $150. Help us to change the world for animals. You can also, of course, dedicate a podcast episode to somebody you love or in memory of somebody, or to yourself even, for $200, which will also make you a flock member. This is all tax deductible to the full extent of the law, and we are so grateful to you for supporting our efforts to change the world for animals. My name is Jasmin Singer. You could find out more about me and my book, Always Too Much and Never Enough, by going to jasminsinger.com. There's no E on Jasmin. Find Our Hen House on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Our Hen House. Find me on Facebook at Jasmin Singer, or on Twitter at Jasmin_Singer. On Instagram, I am Jasmin Singer Author. And I look forward to talking to you next week. Thanks so much for joining us.